So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is a Mr. Media interview. You know, MrMedia.com, MRmedia.com. Stop by and check it out. There are nearly 700 archived celebrity interviews for your listening pleasure. The show is brought to you today by thepartyauthority.us. Planning a wedding, mitzvah, or corporate event? For any and all occasions, call the Party Authority nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs. That's 1-800-342-5357, where one call does it all. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of unapologetic chocoholics in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. I had no idea how messed up HLN Issues host Jane Velez-Mitchell once was. Now, this is not news to readers of her first book, iWant, but I somehow missed that revealing tome, only to get a version of the story in the early going of her new work, Addict Nation, an intervention for America. Jane jumps right into her own struggles on page 1, which takes her to a home in the hills of Los Angeles, where she was startled to realize, hey, that's the place I hit bottom 15 years ago. Apparently, that was the night she was carried out on somebody's shoulder in an alcoholic blackout. Okay, got your attention now, right? I think that was the idea. Now, Addict Nation divides the participants in America's addictions to everything from pills and alcohol to guns and sugar into 12 chapters that start with the stuffers, addicted to consumption, and ends with the sobers, emotional sobriety. Velez-Mitchell and co-author Sandra Moore tackle addiction by producing a high-tech, graduate-level research report on the subject. And Jane Velez-Mitchell, welcome to Mr. Media.
Well, Mr. Media, it's good to be here.
Nice to have you.
I'm having my morning cup of Joe, which I still haven't given up.
Should we call it Morning Joe? That's not right? We don't want to do that.
No, I don't think we want to.
No, we don't want to do that. Take two. Jane, so what's wrong with Americans having a little addiction? I mean, aren't we the entitled society after all? I mean,
we are the entitled society, but I got to tell you, Mr. Media, it's killing the rest of the world. We're 5% of the world's population. We're using almost at least 30% of the world's resources. So we're creating a lot of wreckage. You know, there was a snowstorm here in New York City, and we started to see that wreckage really pile up because they didn't pick up the garbage for a couple of days. And I peered into those plastic bags, and it's all crap we don't need. All those plastic bottles that we don't need to be drinking out of. And all you need is a reusable container. I give those eco containers out on my show Issues to try to encourage people not to use plastic. Filled with a bunch of junk that is really trashing our planet, creating climate change, and we don't need any of it. And guess what? We're paying for it, so we're losing money at the same time. We're in the throes of an epidemic of overconsumption. It's unparalleled in human history. And part of the reason is this is the first time in human history an average human being is bombarded with thousands and thousands and thousands of commercials, ads, and pop-ups and billboards and messages every day that tell us we're incomplete human beings unless we buy this, unless we drive this, unless we eat this, unless we wear this, and that if we do those things and we constantly keep shopping, we will somehow have status in our community, become sexier, find love, be happy, and it's all a lie. It's a big, fat lie. Happiness is an inside job.
No.
You do become happy. There is not one material thing that you can buy, consume, or possess that will create happiness for you or alter your internal state beyond a few fleeting moments.
Wait a minute. Jane Velez-Mitchell is telling the world all that stuff that's accumulating behind us, we don't need it to be happy? I don't think America agrees.
Well, is America any happier? There's an actual happiness index. America doesn't rate that high on it. We are trying to consume our way to happiness, and it's making us miserable. It reminds me of back when I was drinking. I would have a bad day, a rough day. I thought alcohol was my solution. Turns out alcohol was the problem. And the reason I had the rough day was that I was drinking the night before. So once I gave up alcohol, everything became a whole lot easier. I became happy, joyous, and free. And I say to people who are watching your program right now that if you feel compelled to do something that intellectually and in your gut you know isn't good for you, yet you can't stop yourself from doing it, there is an answer, and the answer is Addict Nation and Intervention for America, because my book is a blueprint for change. It absolutely guides you into crawling out of that hole. I don't care whether your addiction is alcohol or illegal drugs, or more likely prescription drugs, or internet porn, or internet gambling, or food, which is one of the biggest addictions that Americans are suffering from right now in America, or buying too many cleaning products that are completely unnecessary when mere soap and water would do. I don't care what your overconsumption is, shopping till you drop, putting you in debt. There is a way out, and that way out is the 12 steps. And what I do is I apply the 12 steps to all of these problems and show people how they can be happy and joyous and free. Because to be enslaved by consumerism, to be a consumer zombie, is just as much enslavement as if you had somebody pointing a gun at you and telling you what to do.
Now, is the role of evangelist, does that come fairly easily to you? I mean, that's what you've become, hasn't it?
Well, I think that I'm not coming from up here. I'm coming from a person who has grappled with all of
Hmm.
this and continues to grapple with all of it. All we get as addicts and alcoholics are a daily reprieve. That's all we get. Okay? So every day I have to pray. I have to get a contact with my higher consciousness, my higher power, and I have to try to stay on the spiritual beam. And I do get knocked off, and I try to climb back up when I make mistakes. So I've, in the course of my journey to sobriety, which is still ongoing, I have given up not only alcohol and drugs and smoking, but meat and dairy products, which we'll talk about, very important, as well as sugar. I'm still grappling with other substances, white flour, salt, and diet soda, which in fact I had been abstinent on, and I slipped on the diet soda because of this book tour. Uh, and I'll get back on it, but I haven't. I've had a few slips on that, so I want to be honest about that.
So what do you consume in the day besides water, fruits, and vegetables?
You know what? Fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains can be made into anything. This is the funniest thing about America's addictive obsession. It's kind of like a heroin addict saying, well, if you're not shooting heroin, man, what are you doing all day? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, the vast majority of dishes that have been made by human beings throughout time have not been a burger and a shake and fries. They have been all sorts of wonderful dishes, whether you're talking about the Mediterranean diet, the Asian diet, the Latin diet, and the African diet. Wonderful dishes that are primarily plant-based. And then they would put a little piece of meat in the center if they were lucky. And of course, many Catholics would eat fish on Fridays. So this idea that, oh, you're sacrificing yourself if you're not eating some kind of horrific junk food and fast food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that's packed with meat and cheese and dairy products is a canard. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Look at the obesity crisis. It parallels fast food. If you look at the charts, they're just like this, okay? We didn't have fast food till the 1950s, and we didn't really have an obesity crisis. It began in the 1950s, and it's just keeps getting worse and worse. So what I say about food sobriety in my book, Addict Nation, is, which I call an intervention for America. With alcohol, you can just say no to it, period, right? It's done, because I don't have to have alcohol to survive. But with food, you do have to have it to survive. So every day, you have to kind of negotiate with it, which is tough. That's why one food addiction is one of the toughest addictions to handle. But one of the things we can do is narrow the bad food playing field. And the way we can do that is simply by saying, just for today, just like I don't drink alcohol, just for today, one day at a time, just for today, one day at a time, I will not eat fast food. I will not go to a fast food franchise restaurant. I will not go through a fast food drive-through. If all Americans made that one commitment, the obesity rate would start to plummet immediately, because 1 out of every 4 Americans eats fast food every single day. Now, they do this despite all the warnings. Oh, we've had movies Super Size Me, Fast Food Nation. I mean, it's been outlined. You'd have to be living under a rock not to know. There's studies in the paper all the time about the battles over fast food, about the high calorie count, about how they've done studies on rats, which you don't need to do. I don't believe in torturing animals to prove this, because all you need to do is look around you, but that rats fed a fast food diet will go through electric shocks and endure all sorts of pain to get to that fast food and eat it till they practically explode. Whereas rats fed a normal diet, which they call the salad option, the salad bar option, would eat normally and maintain their normal weight. So we don't need any more proof, okay? But here's the problem. Addicts do not listen to reason. rational argument does not work with an addict. I know. I could tell you as an alcoholic in recovery myself, that when I was in my disease, people came up and lectured me and they said, Jane, you've got to stop drinking. And I would just be like, mind your own business. It's my life. It's my lifestyle choice. One of the things I say in my book is that obesity is not a lifestyle choice. It's a disease. That's the first thing we have to break through. And I say this with all due compassion, having struggled with food myself, which is why I've given up meat, dairy, and sugar. But if somebody gets on a plane and they start smoking, wouldn't we all be up in arms? Wouldn't we say, hey, flight attendant, this person's smoking? If somebody was rip-roaring drunk and they were yet loud and slurring their words and knocking things over on a flight, wouldn't we say, hey, flight attendant, do something about this? But somebody can get on a plane, morbidly obese, and sit down and literally make it difficult for the people on either side of them to exist comfortably, and that's a lifestyle choice. That's what we're doing when we say that that's just an alternate lifestyle choice. We are co-signing their bad behavior. We are enabling, and we are not doing any favors to that person. I struggle with my weight. And you know what? When I start getting up there, the person who loves me the most, my mother, is the one who will say to me, Jane, you're getting fat. And I'm glad, because we all go into denial about it. I had a scale that I didn't fix for months because I just didn't really want to know. And then when I fixed it, I realized I had gained 10 pounds. So I had to do something about it. But it's a disease. Overeating and food addiction is a disease. There is a program for it. It's called Overeaters Anonymous. I was just talking about this to somebody about how small this program is in America compared to other 12-step programs. Why is it so small? When everybody can take advantage of it, it's for free. It's for free. You just Google Overeaters Anonymous on the internet and all sorts of meetings, including meetings on the phone. You don't even have to go into a physical place. But people are not availing themselves of it because they're in their disease.
Well, Jane, let's take a quick break. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching the Mr. Media radio interview with Jane Velez-Mitchell, the host of Issues on HLN, and of course the author of Addict Nation, An Intervention for America. And we'll be right back.
Hey, did you know that you can listen to the latest Mr. Media on your phone with the Stitcher app? Stitcher is smart radio for your smartphone. Mr. Media is on demand and on the go with Stitcher. Download Stitcher for your phone today. Get the free download at Stitcher.com. That's STITCHER.com.